The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com.
And hello again, wrestling fans. For me, it is Tuesday evening. For you, it is going to be Thursday afternoon, 12 noon to be precise. And we are your lunchtime escape back into the great, rich history of our sport. It is Thursday for you. This week in history, we're looking at October 1st through the 7th. I want to thank you for joining me, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, or listening to us later on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere else you get your podcast from. We are available on the Ontario Indie Podcasting Network and, as you just heard, the Johners Podcasting Network. So there's no excuse to miss us at any time. Now, last two episodes, I was in a hotel trying to get rescue from a flood at my house. I'm back at home, but with limited space and still trying to put everything back together. But we're keeping the tradition alive, making sure we get the content out every week for at least this show, and we're hoping to get back on schedule for everything else. Got a few things going on, so hopefully that will start happening again. Steven looks like he's going to be back soon, and we're going to catch up on everything that we've missed for the last couple of weeks. So I want to thank you once again for being a part of it. Go check us out on any of our social medias. Facebook, easily to get a hold of me. scumbagswrestling@gmail.com to email. Go to scumbagswrestling.ca for our website. There's a lot of information there. And yeah, just contact us however you want. Be a part of the show, and we will be a part of it with you. So thank you, and I'm going to bring in Jonesy from Niagara Falls. How you doing?
Howdy. Except for the case of the yawnies, I'm doing good.
I hear you. Sitting around doing nothing, waiting for my house to get ready to be put back together in certain aspects. I need to know if I can put stuff in my basement or not, clear out my backyard so I can reclaim it. But right now it's just Frank and I during the days, just Frank being my dog, for those listening, just snuggling and watching different wrestling. And of course, almost like every childhood growing up, when you're homesick, the Price is Right is always there for you. So sitting there watching Price is Right, haven't seen it in a few years since Drew Carey took over. It's hard to believe he's been actually there, I guess, 15 years or so now, because they're celebrating their 50th anniversary. So who knew? I'm not homesick often, but right now with the foot injury, hanging in there and doing what we can. But what is consistent is going to be history, the rich history of our great sport, as Tony Schiavone would say. And so if you're ready to dive in, October 1st, here we go.
Here we go. 33 years ago in Rochester, Minnesota, the Destruction Crew, Enos and Wayne Bloom, defeated Greg Gagne and Paul Diamond in a tournament final to win the vacated AWA World Tag Team Championship.
This team was actually one of my favorites, to be honest with you. Like back in the day, for those who were our age, you'd get it. Younger may not get it so much, but I flipped the channels and saw WWE for the first time Saturday morning with Superstars. But that was all you could see basically with WWE or WWF. But then you start changing the channel, and sometimes TSN was scrambled and you had those wavy lines, and you'd end up getting AWA. And eventually I did get TSN, and AWA was one of the first other organizations outside of WWF that I got to see. And they were in their dying times, mind you, doing the Team Challenge series, but the Destruction Crew stood out for me. Even though they were heels, I love the Destruction Crew. And when they switched over to WWF as the Beverly Brothers, I was kind of happy until they got abused like they did. Mike Enos, though, will go down in history as the guy who was in the ring when Razor Ramon or Scott Hall came through the audience on Nitro back in that May of '96 and started the invasion of the NWO. So Enos is definitely in history, and Wayne Bloom's son is on NXT 2.0. He was
Nice.
in the main event. So
Cool.
the Bloom family is still around.
29 years ago in Philly, Eastern Championship Wrestling presented NWA Bloodfest Part 1. Which was the first booked card of its eventual owner, Paul Heyman. Terry Funk defeated Jimmy Snuka to retain the ECW TV belt. And also on the show, Sabu and Tasmaniac debuted against each other, with Sabu winning.
Yeah, you don't really kind of connect the dots with somebody like Jimmy Snuka or even Don Morocco being a part of Eastern Championship Wrestling, which became ECW. But they were there.
Well, even I think every hardcore wrestling group, you're always going to have other guys there because you can't just present nothing but hardcore matches. Mind you, some do, and they're successful at it. But
true.
Anyways, 17 years ago, TNA Impact debuts on Spike TV. The show featured the TNA debuts of the Dudley Boys, known as Team 3D, and the return of Kevin Nash. Moving on to October 2nd, 28 years ago, Eastern Championship Wrestling presented NWA Bloodfest Part 2. In the main event, Sabu defeated Shane Douglas to win the NWA ECW Heavyweight Championship. Public Enemy, Johnny Grunge and Flyboy Rocco Rock, defeated Ian and Axel Rotten and Bad Company, which was Paul Diamond and Pat Tanaka, in a 3-team steel cage match. 22 years ago, Psychosis is awarded the WCW Cruiserweight Championship. Lenny Lane, the champion at the time, was pulled from WCW programming due to the controversial gay character.
Yes, and this was also before Psychosis would go to WWF and become a lawnmower operator, along with Super Crazy and I believe it was Huvitude, and they all didn't have their masks on when they went to WWF.
22 years ago, WWF presented the UK exclusive Rebellion from Birmingham, England. This was the last WWF event Vince Russo would book before his WCW jump. Edge and Christian defeated the Acolytes and the Hollies in a triangle match. Triple H retained versus The Rock in a steel cage match for the WWF Championship. And that was about it for that as far as matches that really mattered. 21 years ago on Nitro from San Francisco, Booker T defeated Jeff Jarrett to win the vacated WCW World Heavyweight Championship in a San Francisco 49ers match. Remember, Russo won the belt on Nitro so he could vacate it for this.
Yeah, this was a crazy one. If you see some of the pictures, you got Goldberg confronting Russo in a sort of Pope-mobile glass cage so that he's safe. You got David Flair going crazy in the middle of the ring. The Natural Born Thrillers taking the tag team titles, it looks like there. But the bottom 3 pictures relate to the lovely match where Booker T ended up getting the championship. And this had 4 boxes hanging from each corner. One of them had, I think, an autographed photo of Vince Russo potentially in it. I know there was a photo of somebody in one of the boxes. There was a couple of weapons in 2 of the other boxes. And then the one that had the title, which I think was the lower left-hand corner one, as Booker went to get that one, as you see in the middle picture there, it actually opened up, the bottom did, and the belt fell out and onto the floor. Like, it was so embarrassing to see this. It's bad enough that it was a what's in the box type thing, but then for the box to really be that horrible, I have no idea which title reign of Booker's this is, but you know, he had 5 in WCW, and you were saying how many times the title got vacated in WCW just in that short time period because Vince Russo thought they were just props.
Yeah, That match with the 4 boxes, why didn't they just go with a cage and put the boxes on the corners of the top of the cage? That would look better and be more entertaining. Anyways,
that would make sense.
I know nothing. 15 years ago on Raw, Jeff Hardy defeated Johnny Nitro to win the WWE Intercontinental Championship. 14 years ago, John Cena is diagnosed with a torn right pectoral muscle and had to vacate the WWE Championship belt. The tear occurred during a botched hip toss in a match with Mr. Kennedy from the previous night. Cena would return in 4 months, just in time to win the 2008 Royal Rumble.
Yeah, that was an injury that should have kept him out about 8 to 12 months. They were originally saying when I saw the original report about it. But then, of course, he just showed up 4 months later, as you said, part of the Royal Rumble. I think he was number 30, and it was Madison Square Gardens, and the whole world just came to a stop, and he stood there in that really short aisleway that they use for MSG and looked around, and fans went crazy, and then he went in and won the Rumble. I think last taking out Triple H, but the guy definitely has some unique healing powers to be able to get through that sort of injury that quickly and resume work in time to return full time for WrestleMania.
You know, that doesn't just apply to Scott Steiner and some others. He is a genetic freak.
True.
10 years ago, WWE presented Hell in a Cell. The show featured the first 3-way Hell in a Cell match in company history. Mark Henry defeated Randy Orton in a Hell in a Cell match to retain the World Heavyweight Championship. Beth Phoenix defeated Kelly Kelly to win the WWE Divas belt. And Alberto Del Rio defeated CM Punk and John Cena in a triple threat Hell in a Cell match to win the WWE Championship.
Couldn't have been put on a worse human being.
Well, you know, he is entertaining live, and I do like his wrestling character, but as a human being, yeah, he's a little bit of a douchebag.
Yeah. And he wants to come back.
But he's a former WWE champion douchebag.
Multiple times. And
he's a great bad guy. You know, you give it to the guy. He's talented. He's a great bad guy. Anyways, 9 years ago, WWE taped the first episode of Main Event. In the featured bout, WWE champion CM Punk defeated World Heavyweight Champion Sheamus in a champion versus champion non-title match. If it's non-title, what's the point? Oh,
well, it was trying to be a big thing for coming off of starting a new show, but unfortunately,
but not big enough for any title to be on the line.
True, but then this became a regular show for them. Like they debuted it as Main Event, and you were going to have the huge matches, like we just said, champion versus champion. And now it's still around, but it's reduced down to what even worse than Superstars, I would say. But like Sunday Night Heat, and it's just a syndicated show with 2 or 3 matches most, and it's all review of what happened in the week. So it went from almost being a Raw to we're just filling time.
Yeah. Not really a main event. Today would have been the 55th birthday of Rodney Akatupu Annoya, a.k.a. the mighty Yokozuna. He was born in San Francisco. Annoya, is it Annoya or Noi?
Annoya.
Annoya. Oh my, say that again for me, slow.
Annoya.
Anawani. See, that's not how it's spelled. How do they expect me? Anyways, he grew up in the famed wrestling family, and was trained by his uncles, the Wild Samoans. He wrestled in Japan and Mexico. He entered the AWA as Coquina Maximus. Annoya, oh man, I just can't say it. My brain doesn't know that one. Is remembered for breaking the leg and ending the career of Greg Gagne. He was 34.
Yeah, that picture that I had up was from the show that they recently did on the network, Icons, and it's definitely a really good watch. You get to hear from his children, obviously from Fatu, but what I didn't know and got out of that whole show also was the fact that he potentially was going to be one of the original head shrinkers and not Fatu going in. But something happened. I think he got injured, and they were bringing him in, and it became Fatu and Samu as the head shrinkers. And then we were trying to figure out what to do with this other Samoan without it being another Samoan, because every time you turn around, they were just more Samoans, like the Haku and Tama and the Wild Samoans, Sika and Afa, and now the head shrinkers, and Samu and Fatu. What do you do with them? And I think they said Sergeant Slaughter or somebody came up with the idea of making him Japanese, and it kind of worked, and the rest is history. But the original, and there is some footage of him in a dark match being part of the head shrinkers before he got the injury. But definitely go back and check out Yokozuna Icons on the WWE Network.
Excellent. Moving on now to October 3rd. 36 years ago today, WWF taped the second edition of Saturday Night's Main Event. The show featured the wedding of Uncle Elmer. Hulk Hogan defeated Nikolai Volkov to retain the WWF Championship. And Andre the Giant and Tony Atlas defeated Big John Studd and King Kong Bundy via DQ. 16 years ago, WWE presented Raw Homecoming. This was WWE's return to its original cable home, the USA Network. After 5 years of Spike TV, this would be the first ever 3-hour episode of Raw. Edge would defeat Matt Hardy in a Money in the Bank ladder match. As a result of the loss, Matt Hardy was kicked from the Raw roster. Ric Flair and Triple H defeated Carlito and Chris Masters. Post-match, Triple H turned on the Nature Boy, thus ending the last ties of Evolution.
That dastardly Triple H.
They all turn at some point. 8 years ago, WWE signed Lee Van Dale to a WWE developmental contract. Van Dale was a former cheerleader for the Los Angeles Lakers and New England Patriots. She is a second-generation wrestler, and her father, Paul Van Dale, was enhancement talent for the WWF in the 90s. She would go on by the ring name Carmella.
Yeah, she just recently got traded, the other night, back over to Raw for the very first time. And that's where her boyfriend, fiance, whatever he is, Corey Graves, is commentating on.
Oh, my wife really likes Corey Graves. Anyways, it's a happy 38th birthday to John Randall Hannigan, known as Johnny Nitro or John Morrison or Johnny Mundo, and he has some other names. The Los Angeles-born Hannigan is best known for his time in WWE, which began after he had won Tough Enough 3 in 2002. His first notable appearance came as Johnny Blaze, an assistant to Raw General Manager Eric Bischoff. He eventually adopted the name Johnny Nitro, complete with the theme from WCW Monday Nitro.
Yeah, and then disappeared after that, returned as part of M&M with Mercury and Melina, and became Johnny Nitro. So that was he was Johnny Nitro then. And then in ECW, when unfortunately the whole Benoit thing happened, he became John Morrison. And it worked because he looked a whole lot, especially when he did that change, a lot like Jim Morrison from The Doors. So that was a good looking name for him. And as you said, he kind of changed his name with every place that he went to. Lucha Underground was Johnny Mundo. Over on Impact, it was Johnny Impact. Right now, he is back on WWE as Johnny Nitro or John Morrison, should I say. And supposed to be feuding eventually with Miz when he comes back from Dancing with the Stars. But it's been interesting to see him being at the height of his career that he was, being the Impact Wrestling champion, and coming back as a sidekick comedy routine with The Miz. So I'm hoping now that they split them up that there's more in store for him. And his wife, who is Talia Valkyrie, or Frankie Monet in NXT, that is his wife. So hopefully she eventually gets brought up.
It would have been the 82nd birthday to Joseph Milton James, a.k.a. Bullet Bob Armstrong. He had served in the United States Marine Corps and was stationed in Korea. After leaving the military, James worked as a firefighter. He got his name Bullet after an injury which occurred while bench pressing a dumbbell in a gym in Georgia. The bench Armstrong was on broke and the weight severely damaged his nose. It almost torn completely off. While undergoing plastic surgery, Armstrong would don a mask and begin using the ring name The Bullet. Armstrong would train and tag with his 4 sons, Joseph, who wrestled in referees as Scott, Robert, who wrestled as Brad, who would die in November of 2012, Steve, and Brian, who is best remembered as Road Dogg Jesse James. Armstrong went into semi-retirement in the 90s, appearing occasionally at events in Georgia and Alabama, and serving as the commissioner of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. He also worked for the Continental Wrestling Federation and Southeast Championship Wrestling. The 2-time NWA Southern Heavyweight Champion and winner of over 60 regional championships, nearly all of them with NWA affiliates, was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame back in 2011. He would die shortly before his 81st birthday.
Rest in peace, Bullet Bob.
Yeah. Moving on to October 4th, 46 years ago, a twin-engine Cessna 310 plane heading to Legion Stadium in Wilmington, North Carolina, from Charlotte, piloted by Vietnam War veteran Joseph Michael Farkas, carried Ric Flair, David Crockett, Bob Bruggers, Tim Woods, and Johnny Valentine. To lighten the plane's heavy load, the pilot chose to dump fuel instead of redistributing weight throughout the plane. The choice proved costly as the plane ran out of gas, sank from about 4,000 feet, and crashed just 100 yards short of the runway, missing a nearby water tower. David Crockett suffered head and arm injuries and lost 2 teeth. Bruggers, Valentine, Woods, and Flair all suffered back injuries. Woods also suffered a concussion and bruised ribs. Bruggers would undergo back surgery and have a steel rod inserted into his spinal column and decided to retire. Flair's back was broken in 3 places and returned to the ring just 8 months later. Valentine, in addition to his broken back, a bone fragment became embedded in his spinal column. A clamp would be needed to be inserted to hold the bones in his back together, rendering Valentine paralyzed and confined to a wheelchair for the remainder of his life. Farkas also suffered back injuries and went into a coma, which he never came out of. He would die from his injuries just 2 months later at the age of 28.
This is almost akin to the rock and roll version of The Day the Music Died, when Richie Valens and Big Bopper and all them crashed. But at least, thankfully, these guys were able to walk away from that, or, well, at least survived the crash. And then looking at this picture that I have up, to see Ric Flair built like that compared to the image that I have of Ric Flair from the time I first started watching him until obviously today, totally different body type. You would never have guessed that Rick was that solid, I guess. Very barrel chested for Ric Flair, and huge arms to go along with that. Not anything that I recall seeing when I first started watching Ric Flair in the late 80s.
Yeah, you would think it's almost a Photoshop.
Yeah. It's like, whose body is that?
39 years ago in Charlotte, North Carolina, Sergeant Slaughter defeated Ricky Steamboat in the finals of a tournament to crown the new NWA United States champion. The tournament was commissioned when Wahoo McDaniel was forced to vacate the title due to injuries suffered by Abdullah the Butcher.
That Abby.
22 years ago on Nitro from Kansas City, Disco Inferno defeated the Psychosis to win the WCW Cruiserweight Championship. And on the same show, Bret Hart defeated Chris Benoit in what was billed as a tribute match to the late and great Owen Hart.
Yeah, it was actually a really good match between the two of them. I also remember seeing them in Toronto Mayhem for the vacant title going against each other. They had a really good chemistry working with each other. It's just unfortunate that Bret got kicked in the head and Chris had his issues too.
Yeah, issues. 16 years ago, WWE presented Hell in a Cell, which featured these 3 Hell in a Cell matches. The Undertaker would defeat CM Punk to win the World Heavyweight Championship. Randy Orton defeated John Cena to win the WWE Championship. And the Generation X, which was Triple H and Shawn Michaels at that time, defeated the Legacy, Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase, in a tag team Hell in a Cell match. Wow, that's I didn't even realize Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase made it to fighting big names like Triple H and Shawn Michaels. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, Legacy was actually a decent group, and even when Cody split off from them, from that, and the dashing Cody Rhodes and stuff like that, he was super talented. It's unfortunate that a lot of people are considering him much like the modern day Triple H, and Brandy, his wife, being by his side, is inciting a lot of fans to boo him. He's very smart. I think the one thing that I would fault with him is that he is trying to relive some of his dad's stuff, or I get honoring what his dad did, but there's some sort of thing that I don't know. He feels that his dad's legacy has been disrespected, and he's trying to correct it all in AEW. So that would be my concern and problem with Cody Rhodes, but I think he's an amazing talent. But yeah, they got to go against DX in a really good tag team Hell in a Cell.
Cool. It's a happy 73rd birthday to former WWE president and CEO Linda McMahon. Born Linda Edwards, she was an only child in a military family in North Carolina. She met her future husband, Vinnie Mac, at age 13 and got married to him shortly after her high school graduation in 1966. Linda worked for a corporate law firm in the D.C. area. In 79, Vince founded Titan Sports, and Linda worked at the Cape Cod Coliseum, cooking sandwiches for the attendees at the event. Linda was brought along for administration purposes, and her knowledge of intellectual property rights eventually made her a valuable asset. I'm losing my spot. Negotiation. She was in part of the negotiation of the company's first toy line in 1984, expanding the audience of the product and the WWF's television deal in 2000. Linda would become the WWF's president in 93 and CEO in 97. In 2009, McMahon stepped down from her post as WWE CEO to run for the United States Senate, which failed twice. Recently, she was with Trump's administration. Now, I don't know what she does now.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. But yeah, she was part of Trump's administration. Never get her to take a stunner. She's even worse than what Vince's original stunner taking was. But to give her amazing credit, that storyline that they had going into WrestleMania 17 with Vince medicating her and trying to divorce her and stuff like that and having an affair with Trish, amazing, especially the payoff at WrestleMania 17, where she got wheeled down in the wheelchair, looking all out of it, drugged up, and then Vince put her in the ring, sat her in a chair in the corner to watch him take down their son, and seeing Shane about to get hit by Vince and pointing back at his mom, Linda. The change from being comatose to awake and then kicking Vince and taking him out. Amazing. Like,
something tells me she took she is into meditation.
Oh, she must be, because there's no way. I don't know how she was able to transfer the other, and she's not a regular performer either. So for her to have been able to do that the whole time during that match of seeing her husband and son battle each other, get tossed into the ring and sat in a chair without changing at all, phenomenal.
That's probably how she looks at Vince when he rambles on about something and just
Yeah.
Anyways, we're moving on to October 5th now. 24 years ago, Brian Pillman was found dead in a hotel room in Bloomington, Minnesota, just hours before WWF Bad Blood. He was just 35 years old. And on the same day as Pillman's death, WWF presented Bad Blood in Your House, which featured the very first Hell in a Cell match, of which Shawn Michaels won over The Undertaker due to the debut of Kane. Vince announced the death of Pillman and was the final pay-per-view of McMahon as the WWF's lead commentator. Also on the card, Owen Hart defeated Farouk to win the vacated WWF IC belt. 22 years ago at a SmackDown taping in Uniondale, New York, Darren Drozdov was seriously injured following a botched powerbomb by D'Lo Brown. Darren would suffer 2 fractured discs in his neck as a result of landing on his head, an injury that initially left him a quadriplegic.
Yeah, and seeing this picture, what Darren looked like getting out of football and being in wrestling. Of course, people remember him trying out or having this meeting with Vince as part of the Beyond the Mat DVD, and Vince going, "He's gonna puke! He's gonna puke!" And him puking on command in the garbage can in Vince's office. And then, unfortunately, after the incident with D'Lo, which they are still friends though today, because he acknowledges it being as an accident, but he has this little tank-looking four-wheeler going on, and you wouldn't know it's the same man between the picture on the left and the right.
Mm-hmm.
But thankfully, he's able to obviously forgive D'Lo for the accident and still have a somewhat productive life.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the price some of them pay.
He's been able to adapt.
Yes. 21 years ago, Annabelle Gonzalez Hernandez, best known as Juventud Guerrera, was arrested following an incident at a hotel lobby in Australia. He was charged with 3 counts of assault, disorderly conduct, obstruction, and drug possession, and 2 counts of assaulting police. He only received a $3,000 fine. He avoided jail time because it was proven he was the sole supporter of his family. He was released by his employer, WCW.
The juice was loose.
The juice was loose. 17 years ago, at a SmackDown taping in Boston, Massachusetts, Carlos Colon Jr., a.k.a. Carlito, makes his WWE television debut and defeated John Cena to win the WWE United States Championship. Definitely one of those memorable debuts.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Carlitos, and he did appear at the Royal Rumble, and I thought, hey, this is great. He's maybe refocused and actually wanting to do his career, because that's one of his faults that unfortunately didn't make him lasting long in WWE, was because he was maybe lacked focus on his career and doing stuff. And it was like, oh, okay, great. He wants to do this and he's back, but they didn't end up signing him, or he didn't decide to sign. Though he did work on stuff with Glow along with Chavo So if you're a fan of the Glow series that was on Netflix, I'm not sure if it's still there. It lasted 3 seasons. He was a part of that.
I believe I'm not sure if they're doing, I think they're doing one more season is the plan.
They were looking at doing that, but Netflix actually canceled them.
Bunch of bastards.
They got a couple of episodes started, I think, and the pandemic happened.
Oh, really? Wow. So in all that all those VHS tapes you have and all that, do you still have the Glow tape, the VHS tape?
Somewhere it didn't.
Somewhere in your collection is one of those.
It didn't make it over to here, so there's still more to claim. But at the same time, unless it's a important thing, I'm getting rid of all the videotapes because the WWE Network has it all.
Yeah, true. Though there is some people out there that would, in fact, I know one person that might actually Duker's one, and there's another person. 17 years ago at a SmackDown taping in Boston. No, we already did that one. 12 years ago on Raw, The Miz defeated Kofi Kingston to win the WWE United States Championship. And 7 years ago at a Lucha Underground taping in Los Angeles, Prince Puma defeated Johnny Mundo in Aztecs Warfare to become the first Lucha Underground champion. People
may or may not be aware that Prince Puma is Ricochet. And this would have been great to see in WWE, but with how they both have been treated in WWE lately, lately Ricochet's been running out the 24/7 title, and John Morrison was stuck with Miz doing water gun fights. Like I said, thankfully Miz and Morrison are split, and hopefully there's some future boosting up of the John Morrison profile and character. And then just the other night, Ricochet got traded over to SmackDown for the first time. So hopefully they have a plan for him. It was actually announced during the TV portion. So I would hope that those who were announced as trades and draftees, however they want to be recognized as during the WWE draft, I'm hoping those ones who appeared on TV as announced are people that the company has plans for moving forward, as opposed to the draft choices that were made off air, where they're just, okay, we're going to divide you guys up here and there. The ones on TV hopefully have plans in place, and he was one of them, and it'd be nice to see what SmackDown has in store for Ricochet.
Moving on to October 6th, 24 years ago, WWF's Raw's War gets stomped in the ratings by WCW Monday Nitro, but the WWF show creates the bigger impression with a pair of controversial moments. In one segment, Jim Cornette would shoot on WCW, and in another segment, Vince McMahon interviewed Melanie Pillman, widowed just a day after her husband Brian was found dead in his hotel room. The interview segment would include asking the widow how Marlene was going to support her kids. The interview won a Wrestling Observer Award for Most Disgusting Promotional Tactic.
Yeah, this gets brought up in the Brian Pillman episode of Dark Side of the Ring, because Melanie is there on that show and has had some rough years since Brian's passing. And wow, definitely something to look at what happened there and the behind the scenes. And you even have Brian Pillman Jr., who wrestles for AEW, as a part of that, and he's almost a spitting image of his dad. And if I recall right, Junior was expected when Brian died. I don't think he was born before Brian passed away.
18 years ago, Robert James Gino Marella, best known to the wrestling world as Guerrilla Monsoon, died of heart failure brought on by complications of diabetes. He was 62. Interesting, Marella worked in construction. One of the buildings he helped construct was the Rochester War Memorial. where if you go there, he is part of the Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Very nice.
14 years ago in Edison, New Jersey, Nigel McGuinness defeated Taki Mishi. Sometimes, you look at the beginning and you think it's going to be one, but Tashi Morihima got it to some of these names to win the ROH World Championship. Bottom line there is Nigel McGuinness beat some guy. It's a happy 57th birthday to Dixie Carter Salinas. Born in Dallas, Carter graduated from the University of Mississippi in 1986 with a bachelor's of business and administration and worked as an intern for advertising firm Levinson and Hill. And at the age of 32, became the firm's vice president. 3 years prior, she started her own business in Nashville, focusing on sports and music representation. She bailed TNA out when its primary financial backer had some legal issues. Her parents, who owned Panda Energy out of Dallas, purchased 71% stake in TNA for $250,000.
And naturally had to become an on-air personality instead of an owner who sits back and does nothing. Or does the business side of things. So they made her a character, and it's almost like how Tony Khan said he was not going to be part of the on-air character, and poof, he's a character within his own business. It'd be nice when promoters don't do it, because a lot of times, and independent scenes as well, when the promoter gets involved, they're the focus as opposed to the talent that's supposed to be in the ring selling seats.
Yeah. Damn promoters. October 7th, 47 years ago, Olympic weightlifter Ken Patera, the four-time national weightlifting champion and third-place finisher in the 1977 World's Strongest Man competition, announces his retirement from Olympic weightlifting and goes on to a moderately successful wrestling career. He would hold the WWF Intercontinental Championship and the NWA Missouri Heavyweight Championship in 1980 and the AWA World Tag Team Championship twice, and was voted PWI's most hated wrestler in 77 and 81. I only knew him as a crappy good guy in his kind of dying years in the WWF.
Exactly, yeah, same here. But imagine what his career would have been like potentially had he not gotten angry at McDonald's and threw a rock through the window and got arrested and did time in jail.
So I can say sometimes when I see the arches, I want to throw a rock through a window. 31 years ago, Rockin' Robin defeated Sensational Sherry to win the WWF's Women's Championship. She would be the final champion before the title was deactivated in 1990. Of course, in 93, the belt made a return with a Lunder Blaze. Then again, it was deactivated when it was trashed. But it came back in 95 with Jacqueline, then changed to the WWE Women's Championship belt. Lee Cool were last to hold the belt in May of 2010, though McCool was unofficially a co-champion and defended the belt in place of Layla. And in 2010, Michelle McCool defeated Melina to unify the Women's Championship with the WWE Divas Championship, which briefly became known as the Unified WWE Divas Championship. Hope you got all that.
A lot of different changes for that belt. Rockin' Robin still has her version of the title. She had it with her during her Dark Side of the Ring interviews and showed that. Medusa brought her version of it to the Hall of Fame after obviously getting it out of the garbage from that night that she dumped it in Nitro. And then, of course, the Butterfly belt, which was the Divas title, made it all the way until Charlotte ended up retiring it and getting the Women's Championship.
You know what? I thought that Divas belt set back women many, many years.
Yeah, well, at the same time, considering what women were wrestling for, because when it was still the Women's Championship, you had people like Jackie, Lita, and Trish with it. But then when you had it go to the Divas title, you had the Bellas, Candice, Michelle, and Kelly, and those type of models getting it over actual wrestlers. So it fit the people who were wearing it because they weren't real wrestlers. They were more just eye candy. And they realized that during the evolution with the women to create a title that looked and was represented the same as the men's championship by creating the WWE Women's Championship. And then, of course, it got divided into a Raw and SmackDown deal, but it actually looks like the same as the WWE and Universal titles.
23 years ago, Public Enemy, Flyboy Rocco Rock and Johnny Grunge defeated the Gangstas, New Jack and Mustafa, and Raven and Stevie Richards, who just won the tag belts in a previous match versus the Pitbulls, in a three-way dance to win the ECW World Tag Team Championship for the fourth time. 22 years ago on Raw's War, the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal, defeated the Godwins to win the WWF Tag Team Championship. 20 years ago, Chris Adams was shot and killed during a drunken brawl with a friend at his home in Waxahachie, Texas. How would you say that?
Nope.
Oh, Waxahachie. That, there you go. He was 46.
He had a huge influence on Steve Austin's career. So, yeah, I never got to see Gentleman Chris Adams, but
I remember him on Saturday night, WCW Saturday night. He was on there a lot.
No, maybe as a jobber. Maybe I would have seen him that way, but not as a actual superstar.
Oh yeah. No, he was a high class jobber. 14 years ago, WWE presented No Mercy from the Allstate Arena in Chicago, Illinois. About 12,500 people were in attendance, with over 270,000 homes watching on the pay-per-view. The show featured a record 3 WWE Championship matches, and that was due primarily to John Cena injuring his pectoral muscle the week before the show. The show would open with Randy Orton, Cena's original challenger, awarded the WWE Championship because of Cena's injury. Triple H defeated Randy Orton to win the WWE Championship. Triple H defeated Umaga to retain the WWE Championship. Beth Phoenix defeated Candice Michelle to win the WWE Women's Championship belt. And Batista would go on to defeat the Great Khali in a Punjabi prison match to retain the World Heavyweight Championship. And Randy Orton defeated Triple H in the last man standing match to win the WWE Championship.
Matches.
A lot of back and forth there.
Yeah, 3 matches for Triple H just to get the belt back to Randy Orton and make it seem as though he earned it.
Blah. It's a happy 33rd birthday for Chelsea Bonin, best known to wrestling fans as Caitlyn. Oh, sorry, that's probably pronounced Celeste.
Celeste, yes.
Celeste, there we go. And that is it for this week. Hopefully I didn't butcher too many names. Sorry there, Leslie. This Week in Wrestling History is compiled from the vast land of Google, Wikipedia, cageseats.com, and most importantly from fans and journalists that had front row seats to history. And a big thank you to, of course, our sponsor, Coolbet, Coolbet.com, and sportsbook betting and casino games. Give them a look, check them out, and enjoy it.
Yes, thank you as always for compiling this list. I have your next list. I just checked my email and saw that. I don't know how I skipped it the other day when it did come, but I do have it. I'm going to start loading up some pictures in time for next week's episode. So thank you for taking us through that trip through our rich history of our great sport. And yeah, we'll see what happens next week, what things are coming up. I haven't seen the list fully yet, but I know October is going to be probably some Halloween Havocs coming up in the next couple episodes. And some No Mercies or at least some Hell in a Cells. So we'll see what goes on with that. But yeah, thank you for joining us on YouTube or Facebook, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere you go to get your podcast from. We appreciate you listening to us. Check us out on the Johners Podcasting Network. There is an app for that. Over 40 different channels to listen to. So many different styles. You don't want to miss out on that. And of course, go over to our page, our store over at Pro Wrestling Tees, prowrestlingtees.com/scumbagswrestling, and you can get a t-shirt with our logos on it. So thank you for being a part of that. And money from our t-shirts goes to help Steven's Wrestling Journey and Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto for carrier malformation research. So until next time, have a good one.